Alright, so just as an FYI, this is going to be my second to last Mass Effect 3 video. I'm hoping to get this out by tomorrow, and then I'm going to do another final video tomorrow, which I'll talk about more at the end of this video. But anyway, here I'm going to be reviewing the final DLC installment for Mass Effect 3 called the Citadel. So essentially, basic premise, you get a message at Normandy or wherever else you can get messages in the game, and essentially then Admiral Hackett orders the Normandy on a shore leave, so essentially you're relieved of duty for a while or just to take a break, and Anderson essentially gives Shepard his old apartment just for the hell of it. I guess he wanted to get it off his back or something. He wanted Shepard to have it just so he couldn't think about it or something. And the plot sort of moves along fairly quickly from there. You meet Joker at this fancy sushi restaurant in the Citadel, and essentially what happens is the restaurant gets attacked by a group of mercenary soldiers, and you have no idea who these guys are. They attack you. Shepard nearly dies. There's some cool, like a little set piece battle there, and then after that you sort of reunite with a lot of your squad and all these other crew members, and you're trying to figure out a strategy to try and take these guys down. That's essentially the basic premise. A lot of faces. Basically, your whole squad's there from Mass Effect 3, minus Thane, Mordin, and Legion. But you could also actually a bonus thing here is that you actually have Grunt. I mean, sorry, not Grunt. Rex in your squad for essentially the first time in the entire game, I believe. I don't believe he was in the Tuchanka mission because this is the first time you actually get to have him as part of your party when you're fighting during combat, which is exciting considering how I missed the moments when I had Garrus and Rex and stuff and fighting like during the missions, and also like in the elevator sequences on the Citadel when they kept talking. Actually, there's a reference to that because I naturally decided to play or to put both of those characters in my party, right? And essentially, Rex misses. Like I think it was Garrus. He makes a comment when you're in an elevator with those two characters. He's like, "Oh, you missed the conversations we had in the Citadel or something." And Rex is like, "Hell no." It was a pretty humorous moment, and it was sort of in tribute to those old moments. I really like that. I don't know if they intentionally designed it like that. That was very, very good for them, for BioWare, to actually recognize like those humorous moments all the way back from Mass Effect 1. So yeah, that's basically the entire premise. I'm not going to spoil anything right now for you. I'll give you a warning. So basically, what's new in this Citadel? I mean, in the Citadel DLC, what are you going to expect here? Well, essentially, there's some new, set pieces. There's like 4 missions in total, essentially, and there's definitely some exciting set pieces here. One, you get this. First of all, you get this spacious apartment from Anderson. Very, very cool. Very cool apartment. Essentially, you get some backstory with Anderson in terms of finding these little recordings he has around his apartment. You get some more backstory about Anderson as well as his viewpoints about some of the stuff that occurs throughout the Mass Effect series, like some of the events, like the First Contact War, I believe, and the current situation with the Reapers, and about Shepard, and I think about his parents as well. So you get some decent amount of backstory there, and it was really interesting to listen to. Essentially, like I said before, there's 4 different levels. I think the main story is a little bit shorter than I expected, considering the 4 gigabyte 2-part download thing from the Xbox Live Marketplace. I still don't understand where the 4 gigs actually went, considering how games like Skyrim create whole new islands and stuff, and then like their content doesn't even hit 1 gigabyte. So it's just, and yet this is 4. I don't know. Maybe it's just different systems, different technological reasons why. I'm not sure. But anyway, back to that. There's 4 different missions. One of them is sort of like with the sushi place. Shepard essentially gets screwed over, and then you fight in the alleyways with a bunch of trying to survive. The second one is you go to this casino by the Silver Sun Strip, which which I'll talk about in a second. You like do a bunch of you're like on an infiltration mission, and then another mission is essentially going into the Citadel archives, and then I won't really spoil the last mission for you. But yeah, I think all the missions themselves are exciting, and actually, one of the Citadel Archives mission, you actually get to bring your entire crew with you. So you actually see them fighting in the background. I know Mass Effect 2 sort of had this idea, like during the suicide mission, where you got the sense that that your squad was fighting with you, but you never actually saw them fight during actual combat. Here, your squad actually, you can see them fighting. Not only do you see them just fighting in the background, but I believe they can actually assist you. Like, they're going to be on a different balcony, so you can't actually be like right next to them with your two other guys, but they actually can assist you and actually have an impact on what you're doing, which is a first for the series, which I actually enjoyed a lot. And that's basically that. There's some new weapons. You start off with a new sort of heavy pistol thing, which deals a lot of damage, doles out a lot of damage on some of these soldiers. Then again, I play in the lower difficulty settings, so I don't know how effective it is on, you know, more combat orientated difficulty settings like normal or hardcore, whatever the hell the difficulty was. Essentially, like I think I referenced before, there's this new exploring area called the Silver Sun Strip. And essentially, this is like a new area to the Citadel, sort of like you know how in this Mass Effect 3 there's different sections. There's like the Presidium section, there's the Embassy section, there's the dock, there's the refugee camp, and then there's something else I'm missing as well, I think, or maybe that's it. But anyway, it's a whole new section, and essentially the only way you could actually get there is if you dock from the Normandy onto the Citadel, instead of saying like it appears like on the menu thing for like kind of like for the other DLCs, which is sort of disappointing because I feel like it'd been better to do it more seamlessly from the Citadel, like when you're on the Citadel in any one of those 4 areas or 5 areas I said, and then go to a rapid transit. As far as I can tell, you can't actually do that, which is somewhat disappointing. So you actually have to go back to the Normandy and then, you know, re-dock on the Citadel, and then you have to choose that. So that's sort of disappointing, but I believe you can go from the Silver Sun Strip to the other areas, but you can't go from the other areas back, which is sort of disappointing, I think. But anyway, the Silver Sun Strip is essentially I feel like it adds a lot of exploration, to be honest with you. I like the layout of the area. It's not humongous by any means. I mean, it's like literally you can walk from one end to the other in about 30 seconds, or 20, even maybe 20 seconds. But I felt the atmosphere there is something different. It reminds me a little bit of what the Mass Effect 2 Citadel, you know, areas that we visited back then. But I feel like it adds new character to the Citadel. It adds freshness because it's an area that isn't, you know, it's something different. You know, it's a different type of atmosphere. The artistic style, the art design is sort of a little different. It's a little fresh. It's not something. It's a little atypical considering what we've been used to in the Citadel, which is, I think, is a refreshing touch. So, and essentially, what you can do on there's 3 or 4 different areas you can go into. There's essentially a combat simulation thing where you go in there and essentially you can just choose like your waves and stuff like that. So essentially you go in there and you hit like what is it? You have different options like what enemy you want to fight, or sorry, yeah, like basically what enemy you want to fight. Like Reapers, Cerberus, I don't know what else, Death maybe, and then what type of infantry you want, like ground soldiers or like heavy weaponry, or like more heavier type soldiers, I guess, or heavier, you know, resistance or forces. And then you get to choose like what sort of combat modifiers there are. There's essentially these act sort of as like skulls in Halo Reach or something like that. Where essentially they make the combat a little more difficult. They act sort of like that, or from like the Batman Arkham City things, like these perks that sort of are deliberately implemented to make combat more challenging, like the enemies take more damage, or take more bullets to kill, or they do like 10% more damage to you, or you start off with like little shields or something like that. All of this is designed to make the combat more challenging, and as a result, you actually get more rewards for doing that. As in, there's like a scoring system that you get like points, like there's bronze, silver, and gold, I believe. And essentially you have to get a certain score. You have to get like above 6,000 to get gold, and from like 2 to 6,000 is silver, and then 0 to 2,000 is bronze, I believe. And essentially you get rewards for that. So you go out of the combat simulation and you go to get like a reward, which generally all it does is unlock more enemy types, more like the difficulty. So all the rewards that you get are essentially trying to increase the combat difficulty here. So that's sort of interesting. Like I said before, you could also sort of choose your squad to go in there with you. You could adjust stuff there, and you could adjust the map as well. I don't know how many different maps there are because I didn't go into it. I only played about 3 or 4 different simulation matches there. But I'm sure there's a lot of a decent amount of variety there. There's also arcade games across or on the across on the other side of the Silver Sun Strip. Essentially, there's like an arcade game, sort of like what you find in normal arcades in our society, where you have like there's like these different toys, but in this case it's sort of like lights, and you have like the claw thing, almost like what like the Toy Story from the original Toy Story, like that game they played. So essentially, like you operate a claw or a hand, whatever, a metallic claw. You try and grab some stuff, and like there's different colors in there. It's a square, and there's different like circles there. But depending on the color, you get more rewards depending on, and they all switch, like the colors. There's like purple, red, green, blue, and they all, like each little dot, there's probably like 10 to 20 in the whole thing. They all switch like instantaneously. And essentially, I think purple yields the highest reward if you can grab like a purple one. And essentially, I think that was a very interesting side game. I didn't partake in it too much, but it was very interesting. There's also a casino, which I believe offers more games. I didn't try any of the games. The casino, by the way, is part of the main quest. Is the second mission in the main quest here, during the infiltration mission, where essentially I'll talk about that in a second. But the casino, I believe, features at least 1 or 2 new games, which I didn't get the opportunity to really try out yet. There's also a bar where you could actually see Shepard dance in a different way, which is sort of connected to the casino. That was sort of interesting as well. So I guess back to the missions. For the casino mission, it sort of reminds me of the Kasumi DLC, her character DLC from Mass Effect 2, where you're in that guy's mansion. This is sort of kind of similar, I guess you could say. Basically, for the plot, I forgot to mention this, by the way, but there's some Alliance woman named Brooks, B-R-O-O-K-S, Brooks, or Alliance Specialist Brooks, or whatever her name is, whatever her rank is, or whatever. But anyway, you can see Shepard dancing there, by the way. But anyway, she assists you in your little quest, and she's infiltrating like a vent to try and get to this guy to get more information on who's trying to kill you, essentially. And you have to talk to you have to mingle with some of the guys in the casino. You have to mingle with these people. Like you can see the casino right there that I'm exiting. That's the place I'm referring to here. So yeah, I like that mission a lot. You could shoot, and you essentially bring in someone as a date, one of your squad mates. I do think that the mission could have been handled slightly better. It sort of does get slightly monotonous because, like I said before, the lack of, like the increase in auto dialogue here, literally the whole thing's auto dialogue, so Shepard will just start a conversation with a random group of people. It's called mingling. There's like several different groups of people in the casino that you can mingle with. Some of them are in groups, some of them are individuals. And essentially you talk to them, but it's all auto dialogue. So unfortunately, Shepard you don't have any real say in what's going on, which is slightly disappointing. But of course, that's just a main core problem with the game that I've highlighted beforehand. Essentially, there's also these guards that you may have to distract along the way if what's her name, Brooks gets stuck in a vent or something. And also there's like stuff where there's these wires that you have to disable, but you can't be spotted by the camera. There's like different wanted levels, you could say, or different like alert levels, like how alert the guards are to your presence and what you're doing there. That's the point of you mingling with the other people. This is essentially to avoid getting caught by the guards and stuff, so you can continue your mission. Overall, I mean, I definitely liked that particular mission. It added more, atmosphere and stuff. Just because the set piece I felt was really interesting to explore. The main problem, obviously, is just the auto dialogue. It's not necessarily a problem with just the specific DLC. That's obviously just a game flaw as a whole. But I mean, if that mission had played out, as in you had like a normal dialogue wheel and you had all these options to talk to engage in conversation with people. It would have added that much more to the experience, but as it stands, I like that mission a lot. Essentially, in the Citadel Archives mission, essentially, I like that mission. Without spoiling too much, it gives you some background about some of the events in the series, like the First Contact War, the Genophage, and there's essentially giant holograms that you uncover while you're fighting through there. These mercenary guys, you uncover these giant holograms, and they sort of display like the history of some of this stuff, and it's not like groundbreaking material or anything, but it's interesting because I think it supplements, and it's more impactful when you actually get to see some of these people. There's like for example, for the Genophage, you actually see a Turian and a Salarian talking there, and that's like the actual part where they initialize it. And I felt it was interesting to actually see that happening. It was really interesting for me, at least, to see that happening. That's basically it for that part. Oh yeah, essentially, like I said before, the apartment is spacious. That you get, essentially, once you go in there, there's like a living room area. There's like there's like a living room area, and there's like a whole other living room area separated by a wall with a television. There's a bar area over there, and there's like a kitchen. And then there's like a bathroom there. There's like 3 or 4 bedrooms in the apartment as well. And essentially, there's an upstairs area, 2 more bedrooms and stuff like that. I mean, you probably can see with the video a decent amount of what I'm referring to here. But yeah, the one slightly disappointing thing, I mean, I really like the design and all of the apartment. I just wish there's more things to do. I mean, yes, there are the Anderson tapes, which are, like I said before, very interesting and very meaningful to the story and his background character. But I wish there's more things to really do and engage in with the apartment. I know there's that. You can check your messages, obviously, but you can do that on on the Normandy or something. You know, I feel like there should be something more specific that you can do on the apartment. Maybe there is. Maybe I just haven't delved deep enough into the DLC, really. I'm talking specifically about just like side activities you can do, not the throwing the party thing, which I will talk about for your friends. But I mean, something more specific. Maybe there is. I could be wrong, but because I didn't, I just finished it yesterday, the day it came out. So I mean, I didn't, fully explore every single feature that the DLC offers, essentially. But yeah, that's there could be, but as of now, I don't think there was really there wasn't really any strong side activity there. Now for the final component here, you throw a party for your friends, and which I believe is the strongest thing about the entire DLC. Even including like the fact that you get to explore a whole new area of the Citadel. A thing that the Mass Effect 3 badly needed was more exploration. And while even with this, it isn't quite as much as Mass Effect or even Mass Effect 2, it's it's a major improvement, I feel, and I wouldn't. It doesn't that lacking feature doesn't bother me as much with this implemented. But anyway, you essentially, after you beat the main mission, you essentially get to throw a party for your friends, and yeah, this was really interesting for me. I mean, just because you get to interact with these characters one more time. I mean, you already know who these guys are, but I feel like it's a pleasure actually getting to, engaging with these people one more time, just because some of these characters I genuinely love, like Garrus, Liara, Tali, Rex, Grunt. I mean, some characters I wish were there, like Morden and Thane and Legion. Like, I mean, one thing I really love about Mass Effect is that I just love basically all the characters, and I mean, some of them I don't love, but no one that's on my side that I hate at all. Like I've heard like Arkangea doesn't like James Vega, but I don't mind him at all. I don't mind him. I think he's a fairly nice guy, sort of a gruff guy, but I like him. But anyway, just all these characters, they all have their individual personalities, and it's just. In Mass Effect, I don't feel like we've ever had a chance to interact with all these people at once. Like Mass Effect has always been a very personalized experience and personal experience in terms of how you interact with the characters. But it's always been like a one-on-one conversation, or at most like maybe a few people interacting. Here, it's actually very impactful because you actually get to experience talking with these people in groups, like people that you've never witnessed interacting before. Like, Miranda and Joker talking along with like Edie and I don't know who else. Then there's like, you know, Garrus Liara, this new shit. I can't remember her name, but like the new analyst woman who works in your the British lady who works with as the analyst in the Normandy now, with like Tally too and all. I mean, it's just really cool. You can throw a party for them, and there's essentially, yeah, all you do is talk to these people, and you do that for, you know, solid 20 or 30 minutes. Essentially, I mean, you could just rush through it and just do it for the achievement or whatever, but just the real joy is experiencing the time with these characters as a whole, like as a group, which I think was very impactful. Like I said before, there's no, you can't really like the same problem with the casino, and the same core problem is there's no, you know, it's all auto dialogue. There's not even just like the two branches anymore, just completely auto dialogue. But really, it didn't bother me here quite as much, just because it's more interesting to hear from like these characters and interacting. I mean, for me, it's just more about the characters interacting with each other, and how just that, you know, that strong social environment, I should say, was really meaningful as a whole. I really enjoyed that. And the people actually sleep over, and it's interesting because some of them actually get drunk while you're doing that. Yeah, so that's really good. And after the party, you can invite people individually to come over to your apartment. Some people, others you can meet, you know, at the Silver Sun Strip. And that's the experience that we're most likely accustomed to, is the one-on-one time with these characters, and that's sort of what happens. But in the party, you get to like take a nice group picture and everything like that, and it's really, you know, fun. It's enjoyable. I really enjoyed it. So that's basically all I have to say about like the positives. I mean, yeah, that's now to the negatives. As you know, Mass Effect 3 is about the damned Reaper War, and this whole thing is just really irrelevant and illogical given the time period of the story, and given the time of the story. As much as I enjoyed the time with these characters and everything, and the story itself is exciting, or like this little quest, it's just irrelevant, and under no circumstances do I feel like this is important in the grand context. Like, Reapers are literally on Earth invading and killing people by the second, as we're, you know, drinking a bunch of, you know, alcohol, and when everyone's getting drunk, which is fun. You know, you get to see Tally in the bathroom drunk, and all these other people, which is, you know, fairly entertaining. But I mean, just the entire grand context of this DLC is honestly pointless, given the actual, realistically, it's irrelevant, and it's illogical for all these people to be on shore leave when this is, you know, happening. Shepard's fought so hard to actually prepare people for the conflict of the Reapers, and just to go on a damned shore leave. It just that whole thing is just not, it's just not flying with me to actually for that to actually occur, for that to actually happen. What else is there? I mean, just for that, I mean, this whole thing feels like it's more appropriate for Mass Effect 2. In that case, I would have, you know, it would have been nice to have Thane and Mordin and Legion, they would actually be there if this is a sort of a Mass Effect 2 thing. I mean, I feel like it's more appropriate for that, because Mass Effect 2, there was no urgent real conflict. There was a lot more sort of side exploring and everything, and meeting new people. Mass Effect 2 is all about people and atmosphere and stuff, and rather more and less so about like the grand plot, which could be a negative, but whatever. I'll get into that in my next video, but whatever. This whole thing feels like it's a more appropriate based around the events of Mass Effect 2 as opposed to Mass Effect 3. So it's inappropriate given not only this story, but like it's more appropriate for the other game. And without spoiling anything right now, the backstory behind the man who's trying to kill you doesn't really fit up well with Mass Effect 3, just because it's, without spoiling anything, it just sort of, the idea behind it would bring up a lot. It feels like it's more important, like it should have been a part of, like, a humongous part of Mass Effect 2 or Mass Effect 3, and instead it's sort of shoved aside. Like, it's a huge, you know, revelation, actually, like the whole reveal here. But it just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in well with what's happening in Mass Effect 3, as well as sort of like the events in Mass Effect 2. They don't add up as well as they could have. And essentially, yeah, that's basically all I have to say about the DLC while being spoiler free here. I definitely enjoyed it. I think it's the best DLC so far out of the 3, out of the Leviathan and Omega, and And this, I feel like this is the most enjoyable one, basically for the most part because of the fact that you get to interact with these characters in a much different way compared to before, in that they're all together now. Um, yeah, so that part I really enjoyed. What else is there to really say? But people who are pissed off about it being sort of irrelevant, then yeah, I mean I really understand there, just because I feel this whole thing is sort of irrelevant to some extent. It doesn't add anything to the overall story of Mass Effect 3, just because it feels so illogical for the characters to do this, and it feels so irrelevant from everything else that's really happening or surrounding the events of Mass Effect 3. But overall, I would recommend getting this. It's only about, what is it, $15 or 1,200 Microsoft points, I think it was. But yeah, I definitely recommend getting this over both the Omega DLC and the Leviathan DLC if you can only afford to pay for one of them, or if you only want to pay for one of them. Just to give a quick recap here, the Leviathan DLC I felt was a good little side journey. Once again, these two things, this DLC and the Leviathan DLC, feel like their story components feel like they should have been more essential instead of the side story. Like, I feel like a side DLC, like a side story arc thing. I feel like the story arcs are some of the components of the plots, or some of the reveals, I should say. And both of these things feel like they could have been a more essential part of the plot of either Mass Effect 2 in this case, or of Mass Effect 3 in the Leviathan's case. They could have contributed more to the plot, aside from just like war assets, for example, which of course is just one of the other problems with the game. But overall, yeah, I mean, I like these two DLCs the most, Leviathan and this one. This one I think is better because you get to interact more with the characters, and that's just a pleasure for Mass Effect, being that it's such a story-driven a character-driven story and experience, I should say. And the Omega DLC, I mean, that one feels. I mean, I did give it a positive review just because the combat scenarios were really thought up. The story was, like I said before, irrelevant from what's happening, and it wasn't all that compelling compared to these two, at least. But I mean, the Leviathan and this one were better. This one overall was the best DLC in the game. I'd definitely recommend getting it, just to say like a final farewell. And it leaves off the Mass Effect series on a more positive note when you're interacting with these characters for the last time, as opposed to the bitter taste or the sour taste that the ending gave us all. By the way, sorry, there's a new gun there. That's a new assault rifle that I forgot to mention. But yeah, overall, the DLC was really good, without spoiling anything, which I'm going to talk about next. The DLC overall was... Oh yeah, just as a final thing for spoiler-free, Rex just demolished that entire cart with all like 6 or 7 guys in there, and that was pretty awesome. I really enjoyed that scene too. So yeah, overall this DLC was really good. And now I'll talk about more spoiler intensive stuff. So if you don't want to have the DLC spoiled for you and have my thoughts deeper about the spoiler parts about it, then by all means stop watching now. Final verdict, go and buy that if you want to have a final interaction with the characters for a final time and end the series on a more positive note. Okay, now spoiler stuff. Alright, so I'm going to try and keep this spoiler section brief because I'm really starting to get a little tired here. But anyway, so for this, you find out that the man who's trying to kill you is actually a clone of Shepard, like an exact copy of Shepard, who essentially was used during Shepard's reconstruction process for spare parts, like if Shepard needed like another lung or a leg or whatever, evidently, and obviously he didn't otherwise. This Shepard still has, all his body parts intact and everything, so clearly our Shepard, the real Shepard, didn't need any of that shit anyway. But regardless, this reveal, like I said before, it feels like it's something like this big reveal and this whole new character should be more essential towards the story. Now I feel like this reveal isn't really appropriate for this time. Like, I mean, the entire DLC, like I said before, isn't really that appropriate given what's occurring. But this especially because it's such a new character, and it feels like this concept would be more appropriate or applicable to Mass Effect 2 because Shepard's whole reconstruction process was more prominent there. It was because it was an important part of Mass Effect 2. It was obviously because you know it was important. It was like it led to the whole Elusive Man relationship and everything like that. I mean, it was referenced a bit during the Cerberus base mission near the end of Mass Effect 3, this game, but I mean, it was a more important story. It served a more important story function in the previous game. So something associated with that, such as this new clone character, I feel like it would be more appropriate to set this, like I said before, the entire DLC. First of all, like I said before, it would be more appropriate to set the entire DLC as a short, like the whole shore leave relaxing thing for Mass Effect 2 when the Reaper threat wasn't quite as imminent. And second of all, I would say, argue the same thing to set this in Mass Effect 2, because this character would be more appropriate for then, because what he's associated with, Shepard's reconstruction, was a prominent function in that story. It was a primary plot component or plot device in Mass Effect 2 story, and here it's sort of referenced. But I mean, this whole character serves no real purpose in this part of the story, in my view. And like the whole. It doesn't exactly explain why he actually wants to get rid of Shepard, because evidently he said he like broke off with Elusive Man. First of all, he says he wakes up like only 6 months ago, which doesn't exactly make a bunch of sense. Like, was he at the Cerberus base and then he escaped or something? Like, what? Or did they store him somewhere else? Is he not at the Cerberus base? I mean, it all feels really damn convoluted. Just in terms of what like the backstory is here. They don't really go into that very much, and when you think about it, the more sort of, illogical things happening are occurring. And essentially, in terms of, and Miranda, this is another thing that really bugs the hell out of me. Miranda is she claims, is like the second highest Cerberus agent below like the Elusive Man or something. So how the hell does she not know about this operation? How does she? I thought she was in charge of the Lazarus Project, right, which is Shepard's reconstruction. So how in the hell does she not know about a clone, which is vital in case Shepard, needs another organ or whatnot, which was what the clone stated his purpose was in that process? How does she not know when she's in charge of the damn process? Why in hell would the Elusive Man keep that a secret from her? It doesn't make any sense about how she doesn't know about the clone whatsoever when she's in charge of the process that the clone was supposed to be associated with. It doesn't make any damn sense to me at all. And second of all, why the hell does Miranda not know where the Cerberus base is if she's the second in command? If she's in the second command, she's not allowed to be in the Cerberus base, or if she's not allowed to know where the Elusive Man is, then who the hell is with the Elusive Man in there? He's obviously not in the base by himself. Is he just with the soldiers and Kai Lang and whatever? And somehow like all these military indoctrinated soldiers, or not indoctrinated depending on what time period you're talking about in the story, somehow they're allowed to be in there, yet evidently, maybe not Kai Lang, but at least soldiers or scientists are a higher level access compared to Miranda, who's supposed to be the Elusive Man's top agent. What the hell is this? I don't understand that about why she doesn't know where that Cronus station is, and why how she didn't know about the clone thing. This is just an example, sort of like a miniature little Mass Effect 3 ending thing. It's just that they had, obviously, this whole clone thing was not intended when Mass Effect 2 was written, so they haphazardly threw in a new idea, and without really consideration with what was presented to us before in terms of that process. And that really pisses me off as a story component, because it really lacks narrative coherence there, because it's not coherent with what happened before. Clearly whoever wrote this, the full writing team just didn't do a good enough job of tying this back well enough with what happened there, because it just doesn't make any damn sense to me. And that's basically my 2 cents here. I don't want to really go on for very much longer at all. So that's all the real spoiler stuff. Oh yeah, sorry. And the fourth mission, which I didn't talk about for spoiler reasons, is basically he takes over your ship and he wants to become you. So essentially, what happens is you have to infiltrate your ship again, and then you fight him on the ship. You fight him on your ship, and you're flying across the Citadel, like across buildings and stuff. And eventually you're fighting him in like the hangar bay area, and then you both fall out or whatever. And essentially the woman Brooks, the Alliance woman who you work with, is actually working for him. So she's a traitor, really. So she actually supported him the whole time. And she gets arrested or whatever after, and basically your clone just jumps out, or like you have an option of saving him after he's gonna fall out of the ship. But either way, he ends up dead. I chose the Paragon option where you offer your hand to save him, but he jumps off anyway. He's like, oh, you get to live, and he's like, for what? And then he just jumps, or he lets go and dies. Or you have an option to kill him. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if you shoot him or whatever, but either way, he ends up dead. That's basically the end of the DLC. So overall, I enjoyed the DLC. I thought it was mainly because, I mean, I liked the story mission in general, but the reveal, sort of like what the Leviathan thing is, the journey and getting there was good, but the reveal just sort of wasn't, it didn't take into consideration stuff from the past games, or it didn't tie in very well with some of the story components of Mass Effect. But, I mean, overall, I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed interacting with the characters one last time, so this is by far the best DLC that they've done for Mass Effect 3, so I would definitely recommend getting it if you want to, enjoy watching these characters, or interacting with these characters one last time, and leave, like I said before, Mass Effect 3 off on a more positive note. And that's basically it. And just as an address, I'm going to make one last video about Colin Moriarty, the IGN editor who reviewed Mass Effect 3. He made some, I don't exactly agree with some of his viewpoints. He made 2 separate videos, and I'm going to be talking about that, and then just sort of my final closing thoughts about the series as a whole in my next video. So stay tuned for that, and I hope you stuck this one video out, and yeah, take care, guys.